So I got some bad news for you guys. Is that well, my voiceover equipment just kind of crashed about halfway through while I was doing this part, anyways. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do this voiceover commentary after I'm done recording the footage and everything that you're seeing right here. Sorry and things. I didn't really like it. It kind of like recorded it or something, but for some reason when I went to save the file and kind of format it out into an MP3 so I could work with it in a video editor, for some reason it didn't work right, which is kind of an oddball thing, but okay. Oh, it was kind of good though that I didn't really end up like saving that recording or anything. It was kind of a blessing in disguise because well, I wasn't really exactly in the best mood or anything. Well, just kind of going through level 9, I was kind of tanky and things. It was really difficult and things, so I would probably have to admit that I was kind of in a sour, bitter mood anyways when I was going through level 9. But I can talk about just kind of the things that I went over, well, when I thought that this was recording right anyways. Well, anyways, the first thing that you're seeing here in level 9 is that, well, I'm exploring like the second half of the dungeon. Which you got to, because I've already explored like the lower left corners or something of the entire dungeon. Anyways, I'm still trying to look for the 2 item underground vaults. Anyways, by the time that, well, when this thing comes around, because you saw in the last episode that I didn't have the silver arrows or anything. I didn't have that against Ganon, so this is just me just kind of blindly like going through the dungeon and trying to find those 2 underground item vaults. But what's really interesting about level 9, you'll see it throughout this walkthrough, is that, well, level 9 used to have a lot of bombable walls when it came to, well, at least in the first quest or something, there were a lot of bombable walls you could use in order to get around this dungeon. You'll see that quite a bit here. Is that I'm right here, I'm trying to go through, I'm trying to find more open paths, I'm trying to fan out the map or something. I'm trying to explore more of it so that way I could explore the entire place. So I could hopefully get those silver arrows in this dungeon. But yeah, you'll just that's pretty much what happens in the first third of this. You'll see of this footage is me just kind of going through the dungeon, kind of going through all the enemies and checking out the new areas. And what you'll have to see like later on in the footage if I'll find those 2 item congregations. But a subject that I've been talking about like throughout this part of the video while I was kind of exploring the dungeon is that, well, I was talking about quite a bit about my standings with Zelda quite a bit. I started out in saying that Zelda is not in my top 10 favorite gaming franchises of all time, and I kind of explained it a little bit poorly in real time, probably because I explained it really poorly because I was focused with level 9 and the monsters and the obstacles and things, so it's kind of a little bit nice that I can kind of set this off to the side and talk about it afterwards, because it really wasn't a good explanation or anything. But yeah, Zelda is not in my top 10 favorite gaming franchises of all time because, well, that's because I'm more of the action guy. I like guns, I like violence, I like action and things, and Zelda is more adventurous type of a thing. But does that mean that I'm not a fan of Zelda or anything? No, of course not. But with that being said, though, I would say that I'm not as hardcore of a Zelda fan as I am when it comes to other Zelda fans. Like for example or something, I talked about the bosses a little bit. I talked about my top 10 worst Zelda bosses countdown a little bit, and I reflected that it wasn't really a countdown or anything that I regretted or anything, but it's not really a really good countdown in my books because, well, the thing is with me with Zelda bosses, anyways. I'm kind of a little bit more laid back with Zelda bosses than I am with the average Zelda player. Like, for example, in things like King Dodongo kind of gets picked on or something, and gets critiqued a little bit too often. And the reason I don't find him really a big deal is really 2 reasons. Is that, well, first, remember that this is a kid's game. Just like with Sonic the Hedgehog with the 2D side-scrollers and with Mario with the 2D side-scrollers. It's not really meant to be hard in any way, so I automatically have those expectations down or something when it comes to a kid-friendly franchise with Zelda. And the second reason, though, too, the reason I'm not so harsh towards Zelda bosses in general is because Zelda overall is okay with its bosses. Like, they're not buggy, they're not glitchy, they don't do anything to mess up with the controls or anything to make the adventure kind of unfavorable or anything. So So reflecting back on the countdown, the part of the reason I regret it is because there aren't really any bosses in the Zelda universe that really bothers me, because technically they're alright, they work and things. Because the reason I brought this up was because I came across Patra in this dungeon, and it was the number 3 entry on that list, and even so, Patra, like, yeah, I can just kind of tell, like, when it comes to entries like Patra, that I was just trying to squeeze in all that I could of all the hatred that I could out of the bosses for the series. But overall, I can't say that I really hate any bosses or dungeons or anything in this series. Like, for example, in things like Zelda 2 and things like that's kind of the big thing that distinguishes me from other Zelda players, is that a lot of Zelda players kind of compare them like side by side with other Zelda games, but the way that I look at it is, you know what, Zelda just overall has a lot of technically awesome video games across their boards or something. They're not buggy or glitchy or anything, and that's the thing, that's kind of the bar that I kind of set it with Zelda. So that's the reason that I was saying that I don't really criticize or critique Zelda as harshly as I do as other Zelda players do, is because overall Zelda is fantastic all across their boards. Like, for example, with the dungeons and things, even with entries like the Stone Tower Temple, like environmentally wise or something, it's not one of my favorites, but still, it doesn't really do anything to really sour the experience or anything. So that's kind of the first thing that I was going over when I was kind of going through this level 9 thing, is that, yeah, even though that I rank Zelda games or something, a lot of Zelda players assume, oh, your bottom entry must be the one you hate or something, and stuff like that, even with my top 17 Zelda games, and no, I just like them overall. Well, Link Between Worlds, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, that's kind of that's what I went over for while I was kind of going through the second half of the dungeon, is that, well, and the other reason that it's not really in my top 10 favorite gaming franchises of all time is that I kind of saturated myself quite a bit with it. Is that I talked about it a lot on YouTube, and I'm one of those guys where if I'm around something for longer and longer periods of time, then the magic of the series or something just kind of starts to wear off for me. And this kind of begs the question, well, why do I keep on making Zelda content? Why do I keep on talking about Zelda if it's not in my top 10 gaming franchises of all time? It's because, well, Zelda does one thing that I think just kind of rules over a lot of other franchises, is because it comes down to a lot about what your interpretation is. It's less about it like being a good or bad, or technically good or bad franchise or something, and it boils down to more about what you can really interpret about it. And that's what makes it such a magical adventure. Like what I'm doing with the randomizer is because I'm exploring, I'm checking out the environments or something, but what makes it so magical is because since I'm exploring and checking out these new places, it creates that magical bond or something with the series, because it's your own personal take on what you're liking in front of you. And that's a big reason I love to share it on YouTube, is because well, they're all fantastically great games and things, and so yeah. Well, yeah. Anyways, the next thing that I kind of talked about, like when I was going through the second half here, is that, well, comparing this to the Maelstrom difficulty, they are both quite great experiences, both of them in their own way. Like the Maelstrom difficulty, it became more of a small key. It kind of like became more of a Dynasty Warriors type of thing. Is that it kind of focused a lot more on your priorities, because well, there were a lot of small key doors or something, but you had to prioritize which dungeon was more important for you in order to progress through the game. And eventually you saw me get the stepladder and things, and it became an organizational game, sort of say. It tested you on what you find more important than other things, and overall I really did enjoy the Maelstrom difficulty. And for this one here with the Ultima difficulty, it tested you in a different kind of way. Is that, well, the routes and things were all randomized, which was cool and things. Items were still randomized. Well, what gave it a really unique feel, you've probably seen it a lot here in the level 9 difficulty, is that it mixed up a lot of the first quest and then the second quest elements with each other. So it gave the dungeon, like for example with the map and things, and normally it's a skull, and seeing it just kind of like pulled into this Boulder Dash type map kind of this set or something, makes it a really fun and intriguing journey to go through, because you don't know where anything is. You don't know where the item is, and it's a whole new dungeon. It's a whole new world to explore, and that's a wonderful thing. Though I have to admit, though, you'll probably see it. You'll see it later on here in the footage. Level 9 just really did give me a bad time. It's because I felt like that I've explored every single corner of it, and it's challenging. It's difficult and things, but I really did spend a huge amount of time here in level 9. I'll actually explain. It'll actually show up here in the footage, probably about like 5 minutes or so. But yeah, this is just me just kind of finishing, just kind of panning out and finding out more of the dungeon and things. But the dungeon was really fun and things, and exploring the dungeon like you're seeing right now. But the point where it kind of gets a little bit bad for me is that I feel like I explored the entire place, and then it's when the backtracking starts coming in that I don't really enjoy it as much, because well, if you explore an entire place, then you're kind of like goofed up a little bit. You're like, that's kind of a problem. It isn't always necessarily a bad thing to backtrack in a dungeon. You kind of have to. It's when I do it a lot where I gotta say that the enjoyment of the game just kind of starts to go down for me a little bit. Like, for example, with level 2, when I was looking for the item things, I didn't mind like trying to find the item or anything, but if I'm going back through the dungeon about 3 or 4 times or something, then it feels more of like a Metroid thing, and no, not really my cup of tea in the Zelda series or anything. But no, I don't think as of this footage yet, I don't think I found any of the underground item things. Well, just from that alone, you know that inevitably I'm gonna find it, but you know, I had the worst luck in this entire part or something, because, well, it's kind of something that's been with me a lot in gaming, is I just had the worst luck ever. Like, for example, with Pokemon, I swear I get hit with the critical hits and things all the time, and I feel like I kind of like going through every single room, and I thought that I'd find the item congregation by now, but I think I've explored probably about 75% of the area, and I'm like, am I really going to find it in like the last 2 rooms or something in this entire place? It's kind of a nasty bit of luck that I kind of got through here, and the map and things is kind of like a U shape like at the moment. So I've explored probably about 2/3, probably about 75% of it. So, and that's me just using the potion right there. It's because well, it's because I'm really far in the dungeon at the moment, and I thought that this was a little bit about where my impatience was actually starting to come in. When I was actually doing this in real time. So I was actually grateful that I'm kind of doing this in post commentary, because this place, it really does stress you out. And that's kind of a mad side to myself that I kind of appreciate myself for. Like, with my achievement hunting side a little bit, I like when there's a good challenge in my face. Like, how can I explain this? Like, for example, with the Imprisoned from the Legend of Zelda series, a lot of Zelda players think, oh, because this guy is like stumping you or something, because you have to like do it over and over again and things, he must be a bad boss. And I admit, like, technically wise, he's definitely bad in a few areas, but the reason I kind of like him is because it's kind of the same reason I like Dark Souls, is because it's grueling, it's unfair, it tests you. And that's what I like from my video games, is because I like it to be less of an easier experience for me, and more of a challenging experience, even if it's expressed through different ways that, well, mechanics-wise, it wouldn't really work out for the best. Is because, well, for example, oh, I can't believe I said for example twice, but The Legend of Zelda, for example, it has tanky controls, at which I gotta admit, it kind of makes it more of a less favorable Zelda game for me, but in a way, it kind of does have its own blessing, because it gives you that added challenge to compensate for it. It makes you think on your feet. For example, with those blue whiz robes right there, a lot of people would think, oh, you know what, that actually makes the game bad, and for a certain degree, I agree with that. But it does bring out the game's charm in its own ways, because, well, not everything is just simply given to you. You have to work for it. You have to gruel through it. You have to put your blood on the line. You have to work through these challenges yourself. And that's kind of where I think the magic of this game just kind of comes into play, is because, well, it's not... unlike Ocarina of Time, where everything is just simply given to you, like enemies, bosses, and the dungeons and things, the original Legend of Zelda is so magical in its own way, because it's hard through its own... because it just doesn't give everything to you. And I really do appreciate that from a video game where it doesn't, it lets you use your brain in order to progress through this game. And no offense or anything, but Ocarina of Time is nothing like that. It gives you everything in front of you. Like, for example, with the 40 rupees and things, with the shield and things, that's something where the game just practically gives it to you. And of course in things there's the puzzle like here and there that you can probably like throw in my face or something about Ocarina of Time. But Ocarina of Time is supposed to be a game or something that introduces players to the Zelda franchise. And I think that's great in its own way and things. It's supposed to be kid friendly. It's supposed to invite everybody to play it. But this is where my video game preferences just kind of start to boil down to it. Is because I prefer these games where it doesn't hand things to you. It kind of makes things a little bit obscure for you. It makes you think a little bit. It encourages you to use your brain. This is the reason that The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages is my top favorite Zelda game. Is because... Oh, hold on. There's a screen transition here. So I found my first item underground thing, which is the key that unlocks everything, which is totally not the item that I needed to see around this time or anything. But yeah, I kind of found it here, like after like exploring like a good 80 or to 85% of the dungeon, and now I'm gonna start to look for the other item congregation. So you'll see the screen like cut here in a few minutes because because I'm out of bombs, I'm out of hearts and things, and I think I used up my potion. So you're gonna see another screen cut here in the next few seconds. So that way I can ready myself up for another round. But yeah, that is a big charm that I find from the original Legend of Zelda, is that, and from Zelda 2 as well, the Adventure of Link, is that a lot of Zelda players, I guess this is I don't know, some Zelda players like it, some don't and things, but I really do appreciate Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 because they offer that challenge in its own way. It doesn't just simply give it to you. Like everything about this game or something requires brain power. And that's what makes the randomizer so magical for me. Magical for me is because, well, one, I like to appreciate the environments, and two, it offers its own challenges in its own way, and it randomizes it. It's not the same thing every single time, and, well, since I played Ocarina of Time a lot, oh, like, that game is just oversaturated for me. I just played it too much, and would I play it even with the randomizer? Well, I gotta say that I enjoyed Master Quest, but I kind of like the original Legend of Zelda with its own creativity with it, is because rooms are entirely mixed up, and it kind of has that limited and basic hardware where you can really mix up a lot of things with it, like with the items and with the rooms and everything, so it allows a lot more freedom to work with it. And that's the reason that I kind of do this randomizer over and over again, is because, yeah, it just offers that unique challenge every single time. And that was the reason I didn't really like the insanity difficulty really that much, is because, well, I kind of think of items and trophies and things, or I kind of think of items as trophies, so to say. Is that it's kind of something where I like to, it's kind of like my achievement hunting side, is that I like to have that trophy there that I accomplished something, I worked for it. That's kind of the reason that I'm kind of a hardcore gamer, so to say, with Dark Souls and with Zelda 2 and with Zelda 1 to a big degree as well, is because I like to have that feeling of knowing that I was the one that conquered the challenge or something, that, and I like it when a game just kind of takes that freedom away from you in the sense that it leads you to your next objective and whatnot. Yeah, I remember this part of the dungeon. Like, this is the part where I've been trying to explore through every single place and things. I'm starting to get desperate. I'm starting to bomb through every single place in order to find the second item so I can finally get the silver arrows to defeat Ganondorf. Oh, yeah. Like, even just looking back on it, I just remember that I wasn't really having a good time or anything with this dungeon because, yeah, I just don't have the best of luck when it comes to, I don't know, just happening to find stuff like early or something. Well, I guess I really shouldn't complain because I found the Triforce pieces like early on in the other dungeons or anything, but items are really something in this mod. They really like to tease me quite a bit in this version anyways. Yeah, it's kind of ironic because the Triforce is supposed to be something you're ultimately supposed to head towards. But yeah, here you go. Yeah, this is just me. I'm like, I think there's probably about like 5 rooms left that I haven't properly explored, so yeah, I remember at this point and stuff, I was going out for several sets of bombs at the shops and things. I was getting myself the red and blue potions and things. I was getting myself life potions and things. I was desperate to find this item. I wanted those silver arrows so bad. It's just I've been through enough and things, and I just and I was probably heading towards Link at this point. You'll find out a little later in the playthrough is that I actually can't get to Link or anything until I get the Triforce. The door to it is actually blocked off until you get to it. But sometimes that isn't the case or anything. So I read up on this mod and randomizer that sometimes you don't actually need the Triforce to be Ganon or anything in order to rescue Link or something. So I was kind of banking on that at the time when I was kind of going through this as I was working towards Link and everything. And there you go. And to my utter disappointment of all time, it is not the silver arrows. So there were a lot of things that were running through my mind at the time. Is that I remember the old man saying that you needed the silver arrows that were on Death Mountain, and so my mind started rushing. Like, was it underneath one of the statues, like it did with the bracelet in the original? Was it like hiding in one of the dungeons, like out in the open, just like the stepladder, like level 1? Yep, there it is, right there. That's the door that's blocked off, anyways, until you beat Ganon. So I can't rescue Link until then. So my mind was just racing through a bunch of options here at the time, and this is just me getting frustrated. I know it's kind of mute because I didn't really save the recording or anything, but this is me just going to desperation. I thought that one of those blocks would just hopefully open that door so I could get to Link, but no such luck or anything. So you'll see me here, so I'll start leaving the dungeon here in a few moments. But yeah, what I decided to try and do, it's kind of good that I would do this in voiceover, because I kind of did this for a good hour or two, was that I checked underneath all of the statues, anyways, just like, hopefully it'd be one of the statues on a Death Mountain, that just like the bracelet, I'd be able to find it under one of those. That was one of the methods I tried, and then, what I decided to do next was go to level 6 and level 9 here for a little bit, and see if the silver arrows happens to be in the open somewhere in the dungeon, and that's the next tactic I try. And you won't see it on camera. Oh, thank goodness you're not going to see it on camera. But I went all over the place. I fully explored Dungeon 6. I fully explored Dungeon 9, except for 2 rooms, but there was like no way or anything that I could get to them. I tried every single warp. I tried every single bombable wall, and it didn't work. I even went back to level 2, the place where I didn't have the item or anything. And I double checked there to see if the silver arrows just happens to be there or something. Despite that, I was warned that it was going to be on Death Mountain or something, but they weren't there. But I can fully confirm that there isn't an item in level 2 because I got every single item in the game now. The only thing that's really left is the silver arrows. So I can confirm by the end of this playthrough that there really was no item in Dungeon 2. Got everything. I got the magical boomerang. I just got everything. I don't think that there's really anything else I could really get or anything. Yeah, it's nuts. And so yeah, this is just me. Like, you're kind of seeing me strolling through the overworld at the moment. I'm actually going to demonstrate to you guys here and pushing the statues a little bit to see at the iron, or what do I keep calling them? I keep going back between silver and iron arrows. But yeah, this is just me just kind of going through underneath the statue. I think that's where the bracelet is originally, right there. Somewhere around this area. But yeah, no such luck or anything. And this is just me venting my frustrations on those enemies that are kind of like twirling around. Because I was like, well, part of the big reason that I was kind of so tired in this episode was that I've been playing this game for probably about 2 weeks straight. And, well, humans and things, they have limitations and to really how much they can play and things, and well, just kind of being pushed through your paces and just kind of getting challenged a lot, just having your brain challenged a lot, it just kind of makes you a little bit goofy. This is kind of another reason that I'm kind of glad I'm doing this commentary and post commentary, so that way I don't like scream my hair out at you guys. And it was probably a bad choice or something to really do this part. Really, well, like level 9 and things, I've been playing this game for 2 weeks straight, and yeah, but yeah, I guess sometimes I'm just a little bit too insistent for my own good, I guess, and I just wanted to finish it. But I will say, though, that, like, while this is going on and things, is that, I had my feel for Let's Plays for a little while. So I probably won't start the next difficulty right away, along with the second quest. I'll probably do it at a later time because, well, gotta take a break and things. And I've got my feel for Let's Plays, so I'm ready to go back into countdown making. So after this part, I'll probably get the unpopular opinions out, and then I'll probably finish up the second part to the top 20 video games. And after that, I don't know. It just comes back to whether I'm in the mood for this or not. And yeah, that's alright. Because, yeah, and I'm sure that you guys are getting sick of it too. I mean, and I'm sure all of my other subscribers are doing it too. Because, like, I'm not stupid or anything. Like, it's cool and things that countdown makers, like, do Let's Plays and they don't mind it for, like, a little while. But there's a point where it just kind of gets a little bit out of hand. So I'm sure that after the second difficulty and things, even though that I left a video of me doing more difficulties, I'm sure that some didn't watch it. I only got like 60 views on it, because who watches those? Nobody watches update videos. Well, as far as I'm concerned anyways. Unless it happens to be a really popular guy, which I'm not. That's fine. But yeah, I'm sure that all of my subscribers are getting tired of it. I'm sure that you guys are getting tired of it, and I'm getting tired of it, and yep. Oh, well, let's just put it on hold, give it a break, and then I'll come back to it. And I think I think during these last couple of parts, I've been showing about how tired and how worn out I am. I think somebody even commented about it. Well, anyways, this is just me pushing everything, and then I finally found it here. The screen just transitioned over into the silver arrows. This is kind of a funny story. Was that I could have sworn that I picked every single hole, every single mountain hole or something, in order to. Well, I looked at the walkthrough again to see if I missed any holes, just in case, and I finally found them. I finally found the silver arrows. This was like after an hour or two just searching the entire world in order to find this thing. That includes exploring Dungeon 2, 6, and 9, and a lot of other places. I looked all over up into the north side of the map. I was getting loony by the time I found these silver arrows, but I am grateful though. For one thing, I mentioned this while I was doing this in real time too, is that I'm really grateful that this randomizer didn't really bug out or anything, and to the point where I couldn't really get it, If it happened to me in a place that I couldn't get it or anything, I would have been seriously ticked off. But thankfully though, yeah, that happens to be the very last hole that I have not plunged throughout this entire The Legend of Zelda thing. So and I also said this in real time too, but this is a real punch in the nuts. I mean, about what I was saying with the bad luck, I mean, every single hole until that one. Are you kidding me? I opened up every single hole here on Death Mountain throughout the entire game, and it happens to be the very last one that I didn't explore where the silver arrows happen to be. That's a punch in the nuts, guys. Oh. And then you guys pretty much know what's going to happen from now on. Is that I'm going to be heading across Ganondorf right here, and I'm just going to wipe the floor with him. Like, I kind of like read his clockwise movements around the room, and I'll just, like, after doing it off of the Maelstrom difficulty, I'm just going to wipe him here in probably about a minute tops or so. So don't expect to see this guy for long. I'm going to punch him right into the ground. What else to really... I don't really know if there's anything else I can really talk about. I mean... Oh, it's kind of fitting that it's kind of over into the Ganondorf and heading into Link or so. That it's a pretty fitting end to all of this Let's Play stuff. It's... Oh, yeah, definitely need to take a break after this. And, well, I can give you some good secrets or something about the countdowns, I guess, the unpopular opinions. That actually doesn't take very long in order for me to put that together or anything. I'd probably say it has about 4 more days or so, but I have to be a little bit more careful with that one because, you have to be delicate with those kind of voiceovers a little bit, and make sure you do them just right, too. Gotta be, there is kind of one thing that I've actually been wanting to work on quite a bit, is that I think it's cool and things to have unpopular opinions. Like, when it comes to Zelda and things, it kind of shows a bit of individuality at the moment, but also one thing that I wish that I could actually work on, it's actually something I should go over, is that I need to get more middle ground with people, is that I think it's cool and things to have unpopular opinions, but I don't think it's really any justice or anything to really just slam it out like bold or something and say, this is what I think, this is what I think, this is what I think. It's cool and things to show your own individual opinion and everything, but yeah, that's one thing that I've really got to work on for myself, is that but just kind of like do it a little more subtly, rather than, yeah, just kind of like blatantly saying this is my opinion, this is my thoughts or something on the matter. It's kind of something that popular opinions just kind of it's kind of helped me to smooth over a little bit. Oh, here we go. We found Link. I found you, buddy. Where have you been? Okay, it's all done. And then, of course, some real time. I kind of compared the Maelstrom difficulty with the Ultima difficulty, but I already did that like earlier on in this post commentary. So, yeah, I just pretty much just described the differences between the two. Like, Maelstrom was more key oriented. It was more about priority stuff. It was more about organization. And then here it was kind of more third quest material. But yeah, I will go back to that about like with the Ultima difficulty, is that I think it's really neat that the Zelda randomizer has gone so far to veer up the dungeon shapes so much to really give the dungeons a truly new, unique feel to it. Yeah, I think that's a really ambitious concept that they were able to pull that off, and yeah, and they just like brought it out here in about a couple of weeks or so ago, and I was really glad and things I was able to do that. Let's see. Thinking about right now whether I should report what I should tell you what the last difficulty is, and it's a really ambitious one. Well, I was thinking a little bit. The Maelstrom difficulty was really fun with not knowing the dungeon levels and going throughout and just kind of color coding everything to remember where everything was. And then here it kind of does a mix between the first and the second quest items and dungeons and things. And I was thinking, well, what more could I really take away from this randomizer? Because that was kind of the thing that at the end of the Maelstrom difficulty was that I was thinking, well, how much more can you really take away from this? So I think I will tell you what the last difficulty is that it's called the Mayhem difficulty, and it's gonna be a real doozy. It's gonna be the same level that Pro Jared was on. It's gonna mix up the dungeon locations, the first quest ones, and it's gonna mix up the items, and that's pretty much it. But here's the biggest catch of them all: you don't have a sword. So I've been thinking. Well, since I've been playing this game so much, since I've really randomized so much about the Maelstrom and with the Ultima difficulty, I was thinking, okay, well, what else haven't I really tried or anything? And I was thinking, well, let's go Mayhem. Let's go swordless and things. And again, I mentioned this like a couple of times earlier, is that I definitely got to take a break from this, just especially towards the end here at the Ultima difficulty. There were a lot of times where I had to go off by myself, and I had to go explore stuff, and took brain power and things, and very satisfying, very challenging, but yeah, I've definitely got to put down my sword for this game for the time being and whatnot. But yep, so expect that when I come back after I do a couple of countdowns or so, that we'll go swordless, and then yeah, I really don't want to randomize it up any more than that with the swordless stuff. Yeah, just switch the dungeon locations and just switch the dungeon items, and yeah, really nothing else. Yeah, it's nuts. And okay, I think that about covers it up, right? Yeah, you guys can tell. I think it's time for me to head down and put my head down, and I gotta start countdown making again. A lot of fun. Let's Plays are a lot of fun. But so is countdown making. Alright, I think that's it for you guys. I got nothing else to talk about. I've talked my heart out during this past half an hour or so. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. A lot of fun. It's always fun to go out and explore what the modding community has done to Zelda, and to really mix up that experience every time. It's been a whole load of fun. So that's everything I got for you today. Let's see what the death toll is before I leave. 50 deaths. Check it out, 50 deaths. Exactly 50 deaths. Wow. Okay, well, I had 47 in the Maelstrom difficulty, so... Okay. Well, with Swordless, this ought to be interesting. I'll see you guys in the next part. After a few countdowns, of course.